The first shot wasn't fired by the aliens, it was us. And that's why they're afraid. Captain Alec Nyx watched the sky burn. His fingers trembled over the controls as the ship's sensors registered the catastrophic explosions just beyond the horizon. The data showed thousands of incoming fireballs, each one carrying the devastating promise of death. But it wasn't the alien fleet that was the threat. No, the real enemy was far worse. Activate the shields, Alec barked, his voice tight with urgency. The ship's AI responded immediately, the hum of the powerful energy barrier sweeping through the hull. But it was a temporary defense. The shields wouldn't last long. Captain! A voice crackled over the intercom, a familiar, calm tone that only added to the tension. You're making a mistake. Alec didn't have to look to know it was Major Alara Cross. Her calm voice had always been a sharp contrast to his own reckless impulsiveness. They'd been on different sides of every decision since they'd met, but this time, she was wrong. This time, he was going to win, or they'd all die trying. I'm giving you one last chance to back down, Alara, Alec said, gripping the edge of the control panel. We can't win this war without striking first. There was a brief pause before Alara's voice came back, laced with steel. You've already made your decision, Alec. I can't stop you. Her words sent a chill through him, but Alec didn't have time for hesitation. He punched in the final sequence. The missiles were primed. Target, Class 15 Deathworld. Lock in trajectory. Alec's finger hovered over the launch button. The world felt as if it had slowed to a crawl. The Deathworld had been found by humanity, not the aliens. It had been their secret weapon, waiting for the right time to strike. Its atmosphere was hostile, its creatures even more deadly. But for all its terror, humanity had been there first. And they knew that it could change the war in their favor. We'll be ready when the attack hits, Alec muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The message was clear, the first shot needed to be theirs. With a swift movement, he slammed his fist down. The missiles rocketed toward the Deathworld. But no sooner had the missiles left their launchers than the universe seemed to erupt. Alec watched in disbelief as the sky around him shifted, bending and warping. It wasn't just the shockwave from the missiles, they triggered something much worse. Captain, the enemy fleet has changed course, yelled Commander Miles Ortiz, the ship's tactical officer. They're coming at us. Alec's heart skipped a beat. The Deathworld was no longer their only problem. The aliens had been watching, and now they were moving. Fast. They'd had no idea the enemy was lying in wait, prepared for a response. The missiles weren't just a warning, they were a declaration of war. I should have seen this coming, Alec growled, slamming his hand against the console. Alara's voice again, only this time it was a warning. Alec, it's too late for regrets. You've set everything in motion. Now we finish this. Alec stared at the screen as the enemy fleet appeared on the horizon, massive ships with weaponry beyond imagination. The sheer scale of it made his stomach drop. This was no longer a battle of strategies. It was survival. His survival, the crew's survival, and humanity's survival. Captain, Ortiz shouted, urgency creeping into his tone. We have incoming. It's a full-scale assault. We can't outrun them. Prepare for battle, Alec ordered, his voice steady despite the terror that churned inside him. Alara, take the weapons. No. Her voice was cold, final. I'm staying right here. We need a strategy. There's no time for strategy, Alec snapped. His eyes didn't leave the screen. The enemy fleet was closing in, their weapons charging up. We're going to have to fight through this, Alara said, her voice quiet but unwavering. If you want to throw humanity into the heart of a death world and survive, then you need me. You need a plan. Alec's fists clenched. He knew she was right. Every bone in his body screamed to fight, to take the lead and charge headfirst into the unknown. But he couldn't do it alone. Fine, he muttered. What's your plan, Major? Alara's lips curved into a faint smile, one of the few times he had seen her smile in years. We're going to make them believe they can't win. And then we'll strike when they least expect it. The massive fleet loomed larger, their firepower lighting up the sky. Alec's eyes narrowed. He didn't care if they underestimated humanity. The fact that they did was their first mistake. Alec turned back to the console, his voice calm now, despite the storm brewing outside. Initiate evasive maneuvers. Bring us in range for a counter-strike. Captain, with all due respect, Ortiz interjected. We're not going to make it. We need to retreat. We're too outnumbered. No. Alec shook his head, his gaze locked on the massive enemy ships. We fight or we die. The ship shook as the first wave of enemy fire raked across the shields. Sparks flew from the control panels as alarms blared. But Alec's focus was absolute. This was humanity's moment, their only shot at defying the odds and showing the galaxy that they weren't just survivors. Alec gritted his teeth. Brace for impact. The ship's hull groaned under the pressure of the incoming fire, but Alec's hands never left the controls. Every fiber of his being screamed for action, for retaliation, for the kind of victory that would echo across the galaxy. He wasn't about to back down, not now, not ever. And then, as the Deathworld's surface came into view, the ship's hull cracked, sending shockwaves through the crew. Brace for impact! Alec shouted again, even though he knew it was too late. And then, everything went black. Chapter 1 ends with the sound of an explosion reverberating through the ship, leaving the crew and readers hanging on the edge of what comes next. The sound of the explosion had come and gone, leaving only the heavy silence of a deathly still ship. Alec's eyes fluttered open, his head pounding with the aftereffects of the blast. His body ached as if the ship itself had been torn apart, and then stitched back together. Through the haze of smoke and flashing emergency lights, he could make out the vague figures of his crew, scrambling to regain control of the ship. Status report! Alec shouted, forcing his voice to cut through the disorienting noise. He pushed himself up from the floor, gritting his teeth against the sharp pain in his side. Shields are down, Captain. Ortiz's voice crackled through the broken intercom. Hull integrity is at 50%. Engines are still functional, but we're taking fire. We're not going to survive another direct hit. Get us out of here, Alec commanded, wiping blood from his forehead. His mind raced. They were on the brink of annihilation, but retreat wasn't an option, not anymore. Turn us toward the Deathworld. We're going to make our last stand there. Alara stepped forward, her dark eyes filled with an unshakable resolve. Alec, listen to me. If we go to the Deathworld, we'll be caught in the atmosphere before we even make it to the surface. The enemy's already set a trap for us. Alec met her gaze, his teeth clenched in frustration. She was right, but they had no other choice. Their options were as limited as their resources. He had made a split-second decision back in Chapter 1, one that had launched them into the heart of a war they couldn't control. And now, they were paying for it. We don't have a choice, Major, Alec replied, the weight of his decision heavy in his chest. If we can make it to the Deathworld, we can use the terrain. The environment there will be hostile to them. Maybe not as much as it is to us, but it's our best shot. And what about the aliens? Alara asked, her voice tight. We can't outrun them. We can't hide from them. We don't need to outrun them, Alec said, his voice gaining strength. We need to give them a fight they'll remember. Let them underestimate us, let them think they've won. And then, when they think we've got nothing left, we hit them where it hurts. Alara's eyes narrowed, calculating. You're talking about a counteroffensive, a real attack. Exactly, Alec said, straightening, his mind flashing with images of what the Deathworld could provide. We have enough firepower left to make it worth their while. If we don't take this chance, then we're already dead. A moment passed before Alara nodded, her expression hardening. Then let's make it count. Ortiz's voice broken again. Captain, incoming communication from the alien fleet. They're offering terms for surrender. Alec's stomach churned. The aliens were offering peace? It was a trick, a deception meant to divide and conquer. They didn't care about surrender. They were only looking for weakness. Ignore it, Alec ordered coldly. Let them think we're finished. We'll show them the price of underestimating humanity. The crew scrambled to follow orders, reactivating the ship's weapons and power systems. Alec's heart raced with adrenaline as the familiar hum of the engines came back online. He'd led them into this mess, and now, it was up to him to lead them out. The Deathworld loomed closer on the radar, a swirling, violent sphere filled with untold danger. It was their final destination, and if they had any chance at survival, it would be there. As the ship shook under the force of another barrage, Alec gripped the controls with both hands. "Brace for impact!" he shouted, his eyes fixed on the horizon. They were nearing the Deathworld's atmosphere, its swirling clouds, deadly winds, and savage terrain that had been a mystery to the universe for centuries. But Alec had studied every report. He knew what they were up against. And he had no intention of letting this war end with them bowing to alien overlords. The ship creaked as it entered the atmosphere, the heat rising as they plummeted toward the world's surface. The viewports showed nothing but storm clouds and flashes of lightning. For a brief moment, Alec allowed himself to feel something he hadn't felt in years: fear. "How much longer?" he asked, his voice tight. "We're cutting it close, Captain," Ortiz yelled. "We can't sustain this kind of descent for much longer." "Then let's make it quick," Alec barked. "Prepare for ground assault. I want everything prepped. Once we land, we fight." The ship lurched violently as the final barrier of the atmosphere crushed against them. The hull screeched in protest as they broke through the sky, the chaotic world below finally visible. The planet's surface was a hellish landscape: craggy mountains, raging volcanoes, and sprawling deserts that stretched into infinity. The air was thick with sulfur and ash. If the aliens thought this world was uninhabitable for humans, they were wrong. It was inhospitable, sure, but humanity had a way of making the impossible work. "Take us down, now!" Alec yelled. The ship's landing gear hit the rocky surface with a jarring force, sending everyone stumbling. The engines powered down with a final groan, and the silence that followed was deafening. The moment they touched the ground, Alec's instincts kicked in. He grabbed his weapon from the side panel, checking it for readiness. The rest of the crew did the same, their movements sharp, tense. "Everyone out," Alec commanded. "We hold this ground until we have a chance to fight back. We have one shot at this." As the airlock opened, the harsh wind and poisonous air rushed in. The ground beneath them was jagged, volcanic rock, hot enough to burn through their boots. Alec's boots made contact with the ground first. He didn't hesitate. The war had begun, and this was the only way to win. "Ready for this?" Alara asked, standing beside him, her rifle raised. Alec didn't answer at first. He was already scanning the horizon, the alien fleet still visible in the distance, a dark cloud of doom. "Let them come," Alec muttered, his voice filled with cold determination. "Let them come." And as the enemy's ground forces descended from the sky, Alec knew this was their last stand. There was no retreat, no escape. The Deathworld was all they had left. Chapter 2 ends as the first wave of alien forces touches down, the battle about to begin. Alec and his crew are ready, but will they survive the onslaught, or will this truly be humanity's final hour? The ground trembled beneath their boots as Alec and his crew advanced through the rocky terrain, the air thick with the acrid scent of sulfur and the constant, searing heat that emanated from the planet's surface. The alien forces were closing in, their massive war machines stomping across the landscape, kicking up dust and debris as they prepared to descend upon the last remnants of humanity. Alec's pulse thrummed in his ears, but his face remained grimly determined. "Hold your ground!" Alec barked to his team, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "This is where we make our stand. If we die on our terms." Alara stepped forward, her rifle raised, scanning the horizon. "They're not holding back," she muttered, her eyes narrowed. "The aliens want us wiped out completely. No mercy. They've underestimated us," Alec replied, his jaw tightening. "That's their first mistake. The enemy's ground forces were unlike anything humanity had faced before, massive, heavily armed, and seemingly unstoppable. Alien warlords, their faces obscured by battle armor, commanded vast swarms of genetically engineered soldiers. Alec had faced countless battles, but this felt different. This was no longer about survival. This was about revenge. And it was personal. "We need to make them think we're weaker than we are," Alec said, his mind racing. "Once they engage, we hit them with everything we've got." "Sir, we've got incoming," Ortiz reported, his voice sharp with urgency. "They're launching ground units. They're getting close." Alec's eyes flicked to the sky. The first wave of alien soldiers descended, their heavy boots leaving indents in the cracked earth. They were monstrous, towering over human soldiers, their eyes glowing with a cruel, predatory gleam. Alec's instincts kicked into overdrive. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "Prepare for the counterattack," Alec commanded, turning to Alara. "We'll use the terrain to our advantage. Fall back to the ridge. Once they come within range, hit them with everything we've got. Don't let them get too close." Alara nodded without a word, moving swiftly to position the rest of the crew. Alec watched as the enemy units advanced, their formation tight and coordinated. They weren't here just to destroy, they were here to wipe humanity off the face of the galaxy. The first shots rang out as the alien forces unleashed a volley of deadly energy blasts. Alec's crew returned fire, the shrill crack of human-made weapons mingling with the low hum of alien tech. The battlefield was a brutal mess of flashes and explosions, the sound deafening. Alec raised his rifle and took aim, his heart pounding. Now! The trap was set. As the aliens charged forward, they unwittingly stepped right into the killing zone. Alec's team had carefully selected this position, a natural choke point between jagged rocks, where they could funnel the enemy into a concentrated area. As the aliens advanced, the human forces unleashed a barrage of missiles, rockets, and energy blasts. The first wave of aliens faltered under the intensity of the attack. But it wasn't enough. The alien forces were far too numerous, and their armor was nearly impenetrable. Alec's eyes narrowed. They needed something more. "Alara!" Alec shouted over the din of battle. "Get to the high ground! Activate the pulse cannons! We need to take out their command center." Alara hesitated for a split second, then nodded and sprinted toward the ridge. She had always been the cooler head in their duo, calculating and strategic. Alec knew she would find a way to turn the tide in their favor. He just needed to hold them off a little longer. The alien forces advanced again, pushing the human lines further back. Alec gritted his teeth. This was it, the final push. He had no intention of losing this battle. Not today. A series of explosions rocked the battlefield, sending shockwaves through the ground. The alien soldiers staggered, momentarily disoriented. Alec saw his opportunity. He vaulted over a boulder, sprinting forward with his rifle raised. His team followed, charging into the fray with fierce determination. "Push them back!" Alec yelled, his voice raw with adrenaline. The battle raged around them, and every moment felt like an eternity. Alec fought through the chaos, his movements sharp and calculated, every shot landing with precision. His crew fought with the same relentless fury, and bit by bit they began to make progress. But the enemy wasn't backing down. From the ridge, Alara's voice crackled through the comms. "Captain, the pulse cannons are online. I'm firing now." A blinding flash of light lit up the sky as Alara's weapon charged up. The pulse cannon unleashed a shockwave of energy, tearing through the heart of the alien command center. The enemy's communication network short-circuited, and their coordination fell apart in an instant. The alien warlords scrambled, their plans unraveling as their forces faltered. "Now's our chance!" Alec shouted. He led the charge, pushing the alien forces back with a relentless barrage of gunfire and grenades. The battle was no longer about survival. It was about victory. They had fought too hard, lost too much, to give up now. The alien forces, once confident in their overwhelming power, began to retreat. The battle wasn't over yet, but for the first time in hours, Alec could feel a flicker of hope. They had made it through the worst of it. As the dust began to settle, Alec surveyed the battlefield. His team was battered but alive. The alien forces had been pushed back, their retreat hastened by the destruction of their command center. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven its worth. "We did it," Alara said quietly, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Alec didn't answer immediately. He was too focused on the aftermath of the battle, the bodies of the fallen, both human and alien, scattered across the jagged rocks. There was no time for celebration, not yet. He turned to face his crew, his expression resolute. "We've made our mark. But this war is far from over. The galaxy won't forget what we've done here today." The fight was far from finished, but humanity had made a powerful statement. They were not a species to be underestimated. Alec knew they would face more battles, more hardships. But for now, they had won this one. And that, in itself, was enough. Chapter 3 ends with humanity emerging victorious from their first major battle on the Deathworld, but the war is far from over. Alec and his crew have won a crucial fight, but the enemy is still out there, lurking. What comes next is anyone's guess, but one thing is certain: humanity will continue to fight.